What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at building a machine learning project focusing on sentiment analysis. This is going to be a quick and easy tutorial. Please do not be intimidated. The only thing you need here is a bit of understanding of how JavaScript works, and also you'll need to have Node.js and NPM installed. Okay, so now we can actually go. As you can see on the background, we will be building that application, and how it works is simply you give it a statement and it will determine whether the statement is positive or negative. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open Visual Studio Code. And then after opening up Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to go and select File and try to open up a new folder. But of course, the project is not yet created. So I'm just going to create a new folder, call it Sentiment Analysis. And then now I'm just going to run npm init on my terminal just to initialize the project, and I'm going to use the default values. So mostly I'm just going to be clicking enter, 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 but you can enter whatever you want. Okay, once I'm done with that, now what I want to do is I want to go to my package.json file, and I want to add a type of module, right? So this is just what's going to allow us to use the latest features of JavaScript and the import syntax. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Xenova or Zenova transformers. If you don't know what it is, it's a module that was basically first created in Python as transformers. That basically works with Hugging Face models. So if you don't know both of those things, Hugging Face is basically like a hub. Think of it as something like NPM for machine learning AI models, basically like that are open source. You can just download and use them for free. Of course, some of them with different licenses. You gotta be on the lookout for that by yourself, but that's basically what it is. And I'm gonna create more projects with similar technologies and all of that. And the other thing we're going to install is Express, just to create a server for our application to allow us to send up information from the client to the server and receive some responses. Okay, so to install them, we're just gonna hit npm I or npm install at xenova /transformers, then we put in express -- save, and then wait for this to finish, and then the packages should be installed. Next, we're getting to the exciting part. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a file called app.js. Okay, after creating our app file, we're going to go into our app and import pipeline. So pipeline is basically like a function inside of transformers, and it allows us to actually do the processing, or basically to do, like for our use case right now, our sentimental analysis in relatively low code, like 3 lines of code. You can get this done. Okay, so once now we have imported pipeline, we're going to now initialize a new pipe, and we're going to say in our pipeline that this pipe is going to be a sentimental analysis type. And then the other thing to note here is that you can supply a second argument with the name of the model, exactly the model that you want to use, but we're just going to leave it as is, and it's going to use the default. And then after that, we're going to try and console log our results. And then we will run it by saying node app on our terminal. And as you can see, we're not getting the right results. It's saying promise, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't really matter. It just means we need to put in an await in our console.log. And as you can see, it says negative there. So which means that, okay, what we're trying to achieve is working. So right now, what I want us to do now is to start using Express so that we can send in text messages or text data from an HTTP request and get a response back from our pipeline. So the first thing we're going to do to create our server to allow us to send text and process it and get a response back from our pipeline is we want to import Express. And after we've done that, we want to now initialize our Express application into this variable called app. Then after that, we're going to set up an Express middleware to just process like JSON data, or to pass it basically. And after that, we will create a new post route pointing to home. And this route is going to take in a request and response. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to define a variable called result, just to store in like the results of our pipe or our processing. And after that, we want to make sure that we replace the static I'm hungry text now with what we'll be getting from request.body. So we can just say a request.body.text. Then afterwards, we just want to send a response back to the client or whoever made the request with the result. res.json, and we put result in there. Then lastly, we're going to listen in on port 3000 and just put like a console log to allow us to see that we are indeed listening on port 3000. And we can now proceed to test if our API is working. So I'm going to be using Postman, but first we want to save the application or our file and then run the application with just like Node app. Okay, so on Postman, I'm just going to create a new request. And then I'm going to now put in the route, as you can see there, or like the URL, which is localhost 3000. You don't need to put in the slash since it's home. You can just leave it like that. And then now I'm going to provide the body, which is going to be raw. And then I'm going to make sure to select that this is a JSON body. And I'm going to create a JSON body with text and give it some text in there. And let's see what we're going to get back as a response. And as you can see, we get the proper result, which is negative. So our server is working, and we can now move on to basically the last part of this tutorial, making the front end and tying the whole thing together. Okay, on the first step to creating our front end, we're going to first create a new route, which is going to be a get method, and on the home or the /, and we want to just send a file, and this file is going to be our index.html. But before we can do that, we will first import file URL to path from URL and also import path. And then we want to basically now make use of the path module to basically join the dir name and the index.html. But before we can actually do that join, let's define a variable called file name and actually use the file URL to path to get the current directory, like the absolute URL to the current directory. So to do that, we'll make use of the import.meta.url. So this will get the current path of the current module, basically. Okay, then underneath, we're going to define now the name, and we're going to use path.theName and pass in file name inside there to get the directory name. And once we've done that, we can basically go back to our res.send file. Inside our path.join, we're going to put in their name, and we're going to put in index.html. Then we can create now our index.html file. Let's just call it index.html. Then inside our file, we use some emmet and generate some skeleton structure for our HTML file. Then I'm just going to change the title. Then now I'm just going to create an h1 tag. Okay, then now we can actually go and see on our browser if this is working. And as you can see, there it is. That this is working. Good. This is step number 1. So now we're going to go to boot swatch, which is basically like having variant themes of Bootstrap. So yeah, let's just go to boot swatch and just download a theme there. And then after that, we will just basically put this CSS file into our project. We're going to create now a public folder, then paste that file into our project, into that public folder. Okay, so now we're going to go into our index file and actually link our CSS, that Bootstrap main file. We're just going to link it now. And then we're going to come and try to create basically like a container. And this container is just going to be a div tag, and we want it to have, so I'm using emmet abbreviation. So this is just basically a way to kind of like do it with shortcuts. So we're going to have it, make it like a large column of size 6. And we want this to be basically like a column of 10 when it gets like really small. And we're going to use MX Auto to basically make sure that it is centered horizontally. And we're going to add some padding on the top and bottom, and also add some margins on the top and bottom. And then we hit tab, then we'll create our div. And then inside there, we're just going to come on and create another card, basically like a card, and it will have some padding all around of size 4. And then inside this, we're going to create a form that has an ID form. And inside this form, we will create some elements. So an input of form control type, we must have the class form control. Okay, and then I'm going to add another class, form control large. So this is basically going to make our form even larger. And then after all that, I just want to make sure that our input has an ID of input. So just to make it accessible when we do some JavaScript integration in a bit. And then I'm going to add a paragraph with some class empty2. So this is basically just going to add some margin on the top, and the content it will just going to put in waiting to process. Then next we're going to put in an element which is the input of type button. But actually we want this to be a type of submit actually. And then we're going to set the class to be btn primary. Then lastly, we're going to put in the value as process. Okay, so now we're going to just move our heading into our card. And yeah, I mean, let's see how it looks. But one thing I want to show you is that here, you see where we link our bootstrap, there's a bit of a problem, but I'm letting it be so that you can kind of learn something when dealing with a server or like Express.js. So let's go on ahead and see how this looks. So as you can see, things are not working as expected. Our bootstrap styling is nowhere to be found and our form looks not so great. So to fix this, let's go back to our server file and basically do some changes to fix this. And to solve our problem, we're just going to go to our app.js file, and beneath our middleware setup where we're passing JSON data, we want to now specify new middleware, which is going to be applicable on the /public route. But honestly, you can make it anything. It can be /assets, it can be /anything. And after doing that, we want to use expresses static and specify a folder. And now this is providing for us whatever file we put into that public folder will be available on /public /name of that file. And then we're going to restart our server. And then we will come here to Chrome to basically see how things look. As you can see, things still look the same. But all we have to do is restart or reload our page. Let's do that. And as you can see, things are looking good. They're looking as we expect them to. So that's good. And now the next thing we want to do is basically to do the full integration is to have the front end make API requests to the server and get a response from the server. Send our input and get a response from the server, and we want to render that on the front end. We're going to go into our index.html file. Then in our index.html file, we want to, beneath this div, create some script tags. So inside the script tags, we want to just create a reference for our response element, which is going to be the paragraph tag. And we want to just get this element by, using JavaScript's get element by ID on the DOM. And the ID of this element is going to be response, and we've forgotten to put that on there. We're just going to put it now, response. And then we're going to do the same thing for the input element and the form element. And on our form element, we just want to basically attach an event listener. This event listener will listen in basically for submit events. And we just want to pass in here a function that's going to take an event, and we're going to do some stuff in it. The first thing we're going to do is to prevent default behavior, which basically reloads the page every time you submit a form. Okay, so now we're getting into the interesting part. So to make the API request, I'm going to be using fetch, which comes already included with JavaScript in your browser. So we're just going to go fetch, and we want to specify the route, which is going to be / just for home. And we're just going to supply with an object with all the information about our request. The method of our request is going to be a post, and we want to just specify in the headers and specify the content type, which is we want to send application/JSON. And we're going to also specify a body for our request. And this body of ours, we want to make sure that it is a string. So we just are going to supply into JSON.stringify an object, put in text, and the value for text is going to come from our input element dot value. So basically whatever you type in, it's going to be put there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to say fetch, and basically we want to go to the end of the method and say .then, and we want to convert the response to JSON. We do that by just providing a function that returns the results converted to JSON basically. Then after that, we're going to do another then, and then we're going to pass in a function with a parameter of results. And we want to basically use our response element, which is that paragraph, and we want to set the inner text to basically be pushing P or negative vibes detected. And this is going to be decided by if the first element in our response is, if the label of the first element of our response is positive, then we want to say pushing P. Otherwise, we just want to say pushing negative vibes. Okay, then once we've done that, we want to also make sure that we clear the input value, the input element. So whatever is in the text box, we just want to clear that after we get the response so that you can type the new message without having to delete. Okay, so now we're going to basically save our file, and after that, let's go to Chrome or whatever browser you're using. Let's reload our browser. Let's try it out. And so as you can see, things are working as expected. So we have basically completed the project, and the tutorial basically ends here. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please like and subscribe if you did like the content, and share with whoever you might want to share with. Yeah, see you in the next one.